Welcome to the Pet Loss Companion. I'm Ken Dolan-Del Vecchio, and I'm here with my friend and co-author Nancy Saxton-Lopez and a special guest who we will introduce just a couple minutes. We'd like you to know that this is a program that grew out of a book that we wrote. It's called The Pet Loss Companion, Healing Advice from Family Therapists Who Lead Pet Loss Groups. And this medium that we're using here allows us to reach people and to have what amounts to a conversation, because we invite you to send us your stories that capture your personal experiences, your recommendations for topics, your recommendations for guests. And if you send us a story and you would allow us to share it on the program, please let us know that. And you can tell us either way. And if you don't want us to share it, one or both of us will get back to you in any case. And if you do want us to share it, you can also tell us that there are certain conditions and maybe you would like for a part of the story to not be shared or whatever. You can reach me at kenddv@gmail.com. You can reach Nancy at nsaxtonlopez at csmpc.com. That's nsaxtonlopez at csmpc.com. And all of this information is available in the description that is attached to either the video cast or the podcast, the audio cast. You can support our work in a number of ways through Venmo, PayPal, a monthly subscription. We'd like you to know that this program is a friend of Dakin Humane Society in Springfield. Dakin is a great program. It offers all kinds of resources, and you can learn more at dakinhumane.org, dakinhumane.org. One of the programs that they sponsor is a pet loss support group that I facilitate once a month. It is usually on the second Tuesday of the month from 6 to 7:30 p.m. But this month, because of travel, it is in fact today.
Right.
You can still RSVP. It's a cost-free Zoom that people Zoom in from all over the world.
All over the world.
It's always a very heartfelt and supportive experience. So don't hesitate to join us if that may be helpful for you. Also, please consider pressing the subscribe button on YouTube if you find this program valuable, because that helps to increase the visibility for others who may be able to gain some use from listening or watching. And today we have a special guest. So I'm going to introduce her and then we're going to go into a conversation. So we're very happy to have with us Danielle MacKinnon, who is an internationally renowned animal communicator, intuitive coach, and author. She's got decades of experience, 20 years of experience. She teaches others animal communication and intuition to students from all over the world, 60 plus countries. Through the Danielle MacKinnon School, she has a program. It's called Soul Level Method, and it is something that you might very well want to check out. She does lots of workshops at facilities such as the Omega Institute and the Kripalu here in Massachusetts. She's written a whole bunch of books, 2 Amazon #1 best-selling books: Soul Contracts, Find Harmony and Unlock Your Brilliance, and Animal Lessons, Discovering Your Spiritual Connection with Animals, and her just published book, which Nancy and I both had the privilege of reading, The Incredible Animal Afterlife, What Your Pet Wants You to Know. You can learn more at DanielleMacKinnon.com. That is Danielle, DanielleMacKinnon.com. So we're going to get started. Nancy, I'll let you kick us off.
Danielle, we are so happy to have you. I watch you on TikTok. You have to let people know that you're on TikTok. And we want you to talk about a few things. I know that it's important to talk about how you can help others become, if they're interested in an animal communicator. But to begin with, we'd like you to talk about the soul contract and how our spirits, our pet spirits and our spirits are combined. And also as we get into the spirit as it works with animals, and especially as they go on their life and helping us, and then what happens in death.
So you just want me to talk about that much stuff?
Yeah, that's I know it's a lot.
Well, that's just the beginning.
All right, I'm going to start with the lesson. the soul contract or the lesson. Everything I know through psychic communications with animals, which, can make me seem a little crazy. I know, but this is my work. This is what I do. This is my passion. So, what the animals have told me in my readings with them is that they are incarnating here into our lives to help us, the humans, grow and evolve. They've said that they have mastered unconditional love and that we're still working on it.
Yeah.
So, it's one of the reasons why when we have an animal in our life, they embody unconditional love. Losing the connection to the unconditional love is really, really hard. So what the animals have told me is that before we come into these bodies and we have these lifetimes, our soul knows, hey, when Danielle incarnates, she's in this lifetime that's coming up, she's going to work on something. Danielle's going to work on believing in herself in this lifetime. And then the animal souls that are part of my soul family, they come around, they're like, hey, I'm going to help you. I'll help you do that. So there's this agreement that's made beforehand. What isn't determined beforehand is how each animal will help or how big that help will be. But it's just determined that this animal is going to show up in your life to help you grow and evolve. Then I incarnate and the first animal incarnates and we come together and we have a connection. Maybe it's a brief connection where I have an emotional moment and it helps me learn something about myself. But really what we're talking about here is our pets. When our pets come into our life and we're like, this is amazing. I've never felt love like this before. Or this is amazing. This dog is driving me nuts. All of that stuff is part of the lesson that the animal is teaching. So that's the first part of what you wanted to know. Yes?
Yes. That's good. So it's a soul contract between our souls.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes. And that animal is going to do whatever they can. They've basically contracted with us. They're going to do whatever they can to help us, like to help me learn to believe in myself. So they're going to take actions. They're going to do things while they're alive that bring up emotions, thoughts, behavior patterns in me, negative beliefs in me that kind of make it challenging for me so that I start paying attention to what this animal wants me to pay attention to.
And it's interesting because beforehand we were talking, you said you have talked to animals, many pets over time, and they've said, well, I'm helping Danielle with this. This is what I'm doing. And that's how you know this, right? That they talk about helping their human person and in these lessons that have to be learned.
I know we were talking about this before. I really thought being an animal communicator meant psychic mind control over the animals, and every animal I came in touch with was going to be perfectly behaved because I would psychically tell them what to do. But the animals did not agree. And they started telling me, no, I'm doing this behavior. I am barking all the time, or I am shedding in this way, or I am having this physical problem, whatever it is, because my human is doing it. Or because I want my human to see what other way they could be because they have this challenge going on. And it was very challenging for me as the animal communicator because these animals were telling me personal stuff about their humans that I didn't necessarily want to
need to know.
Right. Yeah.
It does sound very much like, and I mentioned this before we get started, like the identified patient in a family system is acting in a way to hopefully draw attention.
Yeah, to get attention.
That's going to be necessary. Let me ask you also, are the animals also here, at least in part, to have a good life?
It's a great question because so many of us, we bring these animals into our life and then we think, well, I've got to help them. I've got to do everything for them. They can't survive without me. They wouldn't be okay without me. Mm-hmm. They look at it like, hey, I'm in this life to help you be a better person. When you're a better person, you're able to provide better life for me. And that is a satisfaction for them. So they're kind of taking the long road to get there. Although there are plenty of animals that I connect with who are like, I want more food. I need more walks. We need to get running, all of that stuff. But it's usually still related to I need all these things because my human isn't taking care of themselves or whatever it is. So but in a roundabout way, when we change, we provide a better situation for them.
So it is really about the relationship and what benefits both.
Yeah.
Relationship. Okay. All right. I really want to hear you talk about how others can learn this skill, how one can become more intuitively communicative
Connected.
with our animal companions.
So, first of all, my belief from having been doing this for 23 years now, I don't know how I got to do anything for 23 years, but that's okay. My belief is that everybody is born with this intuition in place. Intuition with animals, intuition with ourselves, intuition to spirit. It's all there over time. Usually by the time we're 5, we've gone, oh, I gotta be regular, I gotta be normal, and we shut it down. So when people are wanting to be closer to their pet, learning animal communication is a really good way to go about that. The funny thing is, so many people who don't know animal communication yet think that they just know their pet so well. They think this is such a great relationship. I know everything they want. I've got it. And then as they start to learn animal communication, they realize they were already doing animal communication, but they were accidentally giving themselves the credit for, just learning through the data, but the intuition was already
there.
in place. Yeah. So everybody can learn it. It's usually really just rediscovering what already existed.
And when you say trusting your intuition, can you just say a little bit more about what that looks like how to operationalize that, how to do it?
Listen, how to operationalize that. All right. How to operationalize that. So trusting your intuition, we so often think, well, I knew he would want to go out because that makes sense to me. Or I knew his foot was hurting because 3 weeks ago I saw that. And we discount, well, wait, you knew to look. You knew that there's a lot of animals are communicating with us. They communicate through visuals, sounds, feelings and emotions, sensations in our body, and also through smells and tastes, and then finally through knowing. And knowing is the one that a lot of animals are using with us, where we think we're just really smart and we really get our animal, but really we're intuitively connected. So the knowing is where it just kind of drops down into you. I use this accidentally with my dog all the time because she knows that's the easiest way to get information through to me. So operationalizing it would look more like trusting that whatever's going on has the intuitive component to it, versus I'm separating out all the intuition into this other thing that I know nothing about, and everything is coming from my day-to-day experience. When we can kind of let go of the idea that this is just because I know my animal so well, it opens the door to the animal being able to actually send more intuitive messages to us.
Okay. Right.
That's pretty cool.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what happens then when the lesson is learned?
Oh, you're asking the tough question. Okay. So when the animal determines at the soul level that Nancy has learned her lesson, that Danielle has learned as much in this lesson as the animal knows this person's going to learn, the animal will leave that person's life. And most of the time that means crossing.
But you talked about in your book, and this book is really was so encompassing and so elaborate with all of this information. I recommend it, but you have to read it a few times. There's so much there. That the spirit leaves prior to death.
Okay,
right?
So you want me to go through the process a little bit? Okay, so when let's use a dog as an example, just so I have someone to refer to. So the dog has determined that their human Sally has learned as much in the lesson of believing in her worthiness in this lifetime that dog's going to be able to help that person learn. When the dog goes, all right, Sally's done it, we're good, I have done my job here, then the dog starts putting into place the plan for passing. The plan means that dog is figuring out when they're going to pass, what they're going to pass of, how it's going to look, who's going to be there, will it be long and drawn out, will it be quick, will it be an accident? All of that is planned. So as soon as that plan starts being put in place, the animal's spirit needs to start getting ready to leave the body. I learned this because I would be having these, I used to do private readings, and in the readings, the person would be asking, well, how is he getting ready? Is it almost time? What's happening? And the animals would give me a visual, and the visual would be, I would see a picture of the animal. And if the animal was getting ready to leave, I would see this like ghosty looking thing starting to move out of the bum of the animal. And depending how far they were along in their crossing over process, there would be less and less of the spirit there within the animal. So they start backing out of their bum until their spirit finally does actually release from the physical body.
And they plan. What it sounds like they have a plan as to how to die. So it's not even in euthanasia, right? I think you said that was one of those things that they could plan.
Yeah, they literally have the list of all possible ways to die, and euthanasia is one our pets choose often. Actually, there's a lot of learning we can do through how we go through the euthanasia process with our pets.
It's very interesting to me that you describe it as going out of their rear end, because I often think about death as very much similar to birth, that we're being rebirthed into another realm.
Yeah.
So it makes sense in a way that you would exit through the rear, so to speak.
Right.
And
even though it's odd and not beautiful necessarily,
right.
Right,
but it's an ordeal.
Understood.
The process of being born is an ordeal, and the process of dying can be an ordeal.
Yeah.
And so it's helpful for people. So this gets into guilt, right? Because everyone believes that they did something wrong. They waited too long. They did it too fast. They shouldn't have left the dog with a sitter. Why did they go on vacation? I mean, there's all of this guilt that everybody has around the death of their animal. So can you tie that in? Because you have a really interesting way of talking about guilt with this.
And so I do want to clarify this as I go into that. We are talking about pet loss. There's grief and there's guilt mixed in there. But my demeanor is not sad. And the reason is because of how animals have shown me that they feel and look at crossing over. To them, it's the next stage in what they're doing. So there's no accident. Maybe the cat got hit by a car, which to us is an accident, but this was still the planned situation. Maybe something bad happened at the vet. Maybe it was euthanasia, whatever it was. This is still the planned situation where that animal is not feeling badly about their crossing over process or about the fact that they've crossed over. They put this whole thing together in some way to help us actually get something out of it, which is the hardest thing when you're deeply in grief. And when you're then doing the human thing, which is going, I wish I'd done it differently. I should have been there. I never should have gone on vacation. And then we're intertwining the grief and the guilt, knowing that animals are planning their passing and they're hoping that we can evolve our soul through their passing. I have found it takes a little bit of that guilt and separates it out from the grief a bit. Oh, maybe I don't need to feel so badly that I went on vacation or that I hired
because it was planned. This is what they determined to do.
There's no way you can stop it. So a bird hit my window. So
that was a sign.
They're emphasizing what's going on. There's no way you can stop it. So with this plan, I had a dog who he had spleen surgery, and I thought I was getting the message he doesn't want to pass yet. And so, okay, we gave him spleen surgery. We took him to the overnight vet. We did everything we could. It didn't matter. In the end, he said, no, I'm ready to go. And we had to let him go. I could not stop that plan. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't have done the spleen surgery, because that was part of our process that we went through. But I think a lot of people think that if they had done this one thing differently, if they hadn't trusted that one person, but if we can step back from that and make it part of the journey, part of the process of the passing, and look at it like, what did this animal think that I could possibly learn from this. For me, when that particular dog passed, I actually got very strong psychic information from him at the end that no, stop with the CPR, stop with all this. It's time for me to go. And so even though it was very traumatic for me it was a lesson in, hey, I'm a good animal communicator. I just did this in this very big deal place. He was trying to help me learn that I'm good enough. And his passing really dialed that in for me.
And we learn from that, right? Because in the end, we've had a lot of people that have gotten back to us after we may have shared their stories. They've written their warming and heartbreaking stories to us. And then later on, they get back to me and they will talk to us about what they've learned. Right. Through the relationship and through the death.
Yeah.
It's
incredible.
And that's the lessons that I think that you're kind of talking about.
Yeah.
Which is really fascinating. And the thing I want people to know from you is that the question is who greets him over the Rainbow Bridge, right? And it's us, even though we only have a little part of our spirit in us. It's out there, right? Could you talk about that?
I'm going to talk about the disco ball. This is where the disco ball comes in. So if you imagine that our souls are a disco ball, and in spirit is where our soul really is. When we incarnate into these bodies, it's like light reflecting on one little aspect of that, beams us down. So I don't have access to my whole soul here. I'm just an aspect of my soul, which means that when my beloved pet crosses over, most of me is actually there to greet my pet. Everyone in our entire soul family, animal and human, is there to greet one another.
Wow.
So does that also mean, or does your experience tell you that we are connected to each other, human beings, in a similar way, that there are contracts that we have with the people around us to help us to gain knowledge or wisdom through this particular life? And does that mean that there are sequential lives in your view?
So, and that's why I wrote out my first book, which is we are all here to learn, to grow and evolve our soul. That's what I've gotten from the animals. They've shared with me, even without animals, our soul is here. We are here to grow and evolve. And so we choose to do that through these soul level connections, through the soul family, meaning my mother, my father, my brother, all of these people, we've all been together, as well as my dog, my horse, my cat, my guinea pig. And while humans stay as human souls, animal souls all revolve out and become different animals. They incarnate as whatever animal they need to incarnate as to help us learn our lessons. But everybody is working together again and again, and everybody is reincarnating again and again based on, hey, let's help Danielle really learn this thing.
Well, it's interesting because my daughter does a lot of psychic readings, and she found out that she and I have been together for multiple lives, right? And this is all making sense to me because this is what she's been talking about. And even when I went to a medium, my mother came through and she said, Rosie's there. I said, Rosie's with her, one of my dogs. And I'm like, well, they had a similar personality. But so there is obviously something to all this, and you've been talking to the animals for a long time. So how do you work with that? Because that's a lot of information to get all the time. And some of it's good and maybe some of it isn't. It's kind of weird or not so good. I don't know.
And I'm also wondering when you talk with clients who have a particular, let's say, a rigid spiritual or religious frame, how does that work?
Well, you can imagine not a lot of super religious people are coming to get a reading,
right. True.
Unless, and this is the cool thing, unless they're deeply in grief.
Yeah. Okay.
And so often that deep grief, that missing and that longing and that wondering drives them to somebody like me.
Mhm.
And then that opens up their viewpoint even more when they're like, wait, how are you even connected? How did you even know that? And it opens their mind to even more ways. But it's so crazy. The grief is the entry point for so many people.
Because I mean, you're giving out an entirely much bigger spiritual frame
Yeah.
than what is given by most traditional religions, not all religions.
And some of it goes directly against. For example,
Yeah.
In I think Buddhism,
Yeah.
they say that animals are working to reincarnate as humans.
Mhm.
But what the animals, isn't that right? They say something to that degree, I think, maybe?
I'm not
I
sure.
think it's similar. So there is something like that because they have an affinity with animals, don't they? Or was that Hinduism?
Well,
I don't know.
Hinduism, you go every incarnation, you either go up or down the chain of being, the way I understand it, and I don't understand it well.
I don't have a good understanding either. I know enough to know that what the animals are telling me is very different, which is they do not want to ever reincarnate as humans because
As a person, right?
right, because we
we're
have a
less
master
than beings.
We're not evolved like they are.
Right. They don't want to go backwards. They're here for us.
That's right.
Really,
You know,
so what do you make of what we see as grief, which is this extraordinary emotional turmoil that many of us need to work through in order to come to a place of just kind of living with the reality of what's happened. So what's your understanding of that? Like why that happens even?
Well, the first piece, when I'm talking with people about their process that they're going through, because no animal has ever said you can circumvent grief. It is a very normal thing. We all have to go through grief. And a lot of good can come out of it. But we have to separate out that guilt first. It's very hard to move through your grieving process when the guilt is basically smushing down your ability to even have positive thoughts about the animal that has crossed over. So the first thing I always advise people to do is to kind of look at those as two separate things. Am I feeling guilty right now, or am I missing them right now? That just doing that helps so many people be able to re-experience the love for their pet who they are missing, and also reconnect with their pet who they are missing. Because guilt, you're not going to get anywhere when the guilt is in there.
Guilt's
Right.
too hard.
So Danielle, we've just got a couple minutes left, and I'm wondering if you were to leave listeners to this program with 2 or 3 points that you think it might be most useful for them to take away, what would those points be?
The first point would be that you couldn't control it. There is nothing you could have done to change the outcome. You can pay all the money in the world. You could have been as present as you wanted. You could have not interacted with anything dangerous, and you could not stop this process from happening. Nor is it your fault. So a lot of people go down the road. It's a little bit different from I should have stopped it to this is my fault. This happened because of me. Yeah. When people learn that the animals are teaching us these lessons, and then they're like, oh, he's teaching me to believe in myself and believe in my worthiness. Well, then I'm not going to do that work. I don't want to. I don't want him to die. Right, because I don't want him to leave. And if you try to do that, they just up the ante and they make you really, really work it. So they leave you with no choice but to be present in the relationship, as present as you can, and to do your work. For the animals, their passing is a beautiful moving on to the next level. They're not upset about it, which brings me to my third point, which is there are no accidents. It is all planned. It is all as it is supposed to be. Actually, I have a fourth point. We're going to add a fourth point if you're cool with that.
Sure.
When you can separate the guilt over here and you have your grief and you're in your grieving process, as you move into that process and start adjusting, one of the coolest things that happens is it opens up the energy so that your animal on the other side can start sending signs and messages.
Yes, good. I was going to ask about that.
And that's what we want, right? We want to reconnect with them from the other side. Yeah. But we have to do the emotional work on ourselves. We have to understand there's guilt in there. We have to look at that. We have to understand the grief. When we have to do that work, if we don't, and we are overtaken with it, and we don't move on this for years, we're not going to be in a place where the energy is open to be able to receive.
And they can come and give us signs.
Yeah.
Smell them, hear them, see them.
Yes.
And that's wonderful. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This is
This is great.
really a lot of food for thought and brilliant. And so thank you again, Danielle MacKinnon. You can learn more about her at daniellemackinnon.com and on Facebook and on TikTok. And so thank you so much. And also,
Thank you so much. This is really enlightening, and I think our audience would really appreciate all the information that you gave us.
Thank you for having me.
I also just want to remind viewers and listeners, please subscribe on YouTube if you are so inclined, because that will help others to find the program, and hopefully it will be useful for them if it's useful for you. Thank you.
Thank you.